What happens when one of the most famous royals in the world walks onto a live talk show and completely loses control? It only took one pointed question from Sunny Hostin to turn a routine interview into absolute chaos. This is the story of the day Prince Harry got kicked off The View. The studio audience had no idea what they were about to witness. The cameras were rolling. The lights were bright. And sitting across from the panel was Prince Harry, there to promote his latest charitable initiative. Everything seemed normal at first. Cordial even. The co-hosts asked their questions. Harry gave his rehearsed answers. Smiles all around. But Sunny Hostin wasn't interested in playing it safe. About 15 minutes into the segment, Sunny leaned forward in her chair. She had that look. You know the one. The look that says she's about to ask something real. Something that cuts through all the carefully crafted PR responses. Prince Harry, she began, her voice steady and professional. You've spoken a lot about privacy and protecting your family. But you've also written books, done interviews, created documentaries, all sharing very intimate details about your life. How do you reconcile those two things? The question hung in the air. A fair question. A journalist doing her job. But Harry's expression changed immediately. His jaw tightened. His eyes narrowed. The friendly demeanor vanished in an instant. I think that's a bit reductive, don't you? Harry shot back, his tone sharp. You're oversimplifying a very complex situation. Sunny didn't flinch. She never does. That's what makes her good at what she does. I'm not trying to oversimplify anything, Sunny replied calmly. I'm asking you to explain it, because a lot of people are confused by the contradiction. Contradiction? Harry's voice rose slightly. There's no contradiction. What I choose to share about my own life is my choice. That's the whole point. It's about control. Right, but... Sunny started. No, let me finish, Harry interrupted, holding up his hand. You sit here every day and you talk about other people's lives. You dissect them. You judge them. And now you're doing it to me, acting like you have some moral high ground. The other co-hosts exchanged glances. The audience went quiet. This was escalating fast. Sunny remained composed, professional. She's been in this business long enough to not take the bait. I'm not judging you, Sunny said evenly. I'm asking you a question that I think a lot of our viewers want answered. That's my job. Your job? Harry let out a bitter laugh. Your job is to sit here and make people feel small? To corner them with gotcha questions? That wasn't a gotcha question, Sunny responded, her voice still calm but firm. That was a straightforward question about a very public pattern of behavior. Harry leaned back in his chair, shaking his head. This is exactly what I'm talking about. This is why I left. This is why my family and I had to get out. People like you, the media. You twist everything. I haven't twisted anything, Sunny said. I've literally just asked you to explain your own choices. My choices? Harry's face was getting red now. You could see it even under the studio lights. You want to talk about choices? Let's talk about your choices. Let's talk about how you make a living tearing people down on national television. The energy in the studio shifted. This wasn't debate anymore. This was personal, and it was getting ugly. Whoopi Goldberg tried to step in. Okay, let's maybe take a breath here and... But Harry wasn't done. He pointed at Sunny, his finger jabbing the air between them. You know what your problem is? Harry continued, his voice dripping with condescension. You think because you have this platform, you can say whatever you want. You can pry into people's lives. You can demand explanations. But you're just a talk show host. You're not royalty. You don't understand what it's like to have real responsibility. The audience gasped. Actual gasps. Because everyone in that room knew he'd just crossed a line. Sunny's expression hardened. Up until this moment, she'd been patient, professional. giving him every opportunity to have a real conversation. But this was disrespect. Pure and simple. "Excuse me," Sunny said, her voice low and controlled. "I'm just a talk show host. Let me tell you something, Prince Harry. I worked hard to get where I am. I didn't inherit my position. I earned it. Every single day, I earn it." "Oh, here we go," Harry muttered, rolling his eyes. Actually, rolling his eyes on live television. "No, you're going to listen now," Sunny continued, her voice stronger. "You came on this show. You agreed to this interview. And now you're upset because I asked you a question you didn't like. That's not how this works. You don't get to pick and choose which questions you answer based on your mood." Harry stood up abruptly. His chair scraped against the floor. Loud. The microphone clipped to his collar, almost pulled loose. "I don't have to sit here and take this," Harry said, his voice shaking with anger. "I don't have to listen to some television personality lecture me about responsibility." "Then leave," Sunny said simply. "Nobody's forcing you to stay." The studio went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. The cameras kept rolling because this was live television, and there was nowhere to hide. Harry stared at Sunny. Sunny stared right back, neither one blinking. The tension was suffocating. "You're unbelievable," Harry finally said. "Absolutely unbelievable. Do you know who I am?" And there it was, the question that proved everything. Do you know who I am? The calling card of someone who thinks their title matters more than their behavior. "I know exactly who you are," Sunny replied, her voice steady as a rock. "And right now, you're someone who's being incredibly rude and disrespectful on my show." "Your show?" Harry laughed again, that same bitter sound. "This isn't your show. This is a panel. You're just one voice among many." Joy Behar jumped in at this point. "Okay, I think we need to..." But Harry cut her off too. No, I'm done. I'm done with this. I'm done with her." He pointed at Sunny again. "This is exactly the kind of media harassment I've been talking about. This is what I've been trying to expose." "Asking you a question is not harassment," Sunny said firmly, "and you know that. But you're deflecting because you don't have a good answer." Harry yanked the microphone off his collar. The wire tangled for a second, and he ripped it free. "I don't owe you an answer. I don't owe you anything." "You owe our audience respect," Sunny shot back. "They came here to hear a real conversation, not to watch you throw a tantrum because someone challenged you." "A tantrum?" Harry's voice went up an octave. "You call this a tantrum? I'm standing up for myself. Something you clearly wouldn't understand because you make your living attacking people who can't fight back." "I've never attacked anyone who can't fight back," Sunny said, standing up now too. "But you can clearly fight back. In fact, you're doing it right now. Very loudly. Very aggressively. On live television." The other hosts were trying to regain control of the segment. Whoopi was saying something about taking a commercial break. Sarah Haynes looked absolutely mortified. Alyssa Farrah Griffin sat frozen, clearly unsure what to do. But Harry and Sunny were locked in their standoff, neither willing to back down. "You're a bully," Harry said, his voice venomous. "You hide behind your desk and your co-hosts, and you think that makes you untouchable. But you're just a bully with a microphone." "I'm a journalist," Sunny corrected him. "And if you can't handle basic questions about your very public life, then maybe you should stop doing interviews." "Maybe I will," Harry snapped. "Maybe I'll stop giving people like you the time of day, because clearly, you don't deserve it." "People like me?" Sunny repeated. "What does that mean exactly?" Harry realized his mistake too late. You could see it on his face. The moment where he knew he'd said something he couldn't take back. That's not what I meant," he stammered. "No, please," Sunny said, crossing her arms. "Explain what you meant by people like me. I'd love to hear it." "I meant journalists," Harry said quickly. I meant media people who twist everything. That's not what it sounded like, Sunny said quietly. And you know it? The producers were in Harry's ear at this point. You could tell, because he touched his earpiece and his expression changed. Someone was telling him to sit down, to apologize, to fix this. But Harry's pride wouldn't let him. Instead, he pulled the earpiece out and tossed it onto the table. I'm leaving, Harry announced to the room. This interview is over. We didn't end it, Sunny pointed out. You did. Because you made it impossible, Harry insisted. You came at me with hostility from the start. I came at you with a question, Sunny said, her patience clearly wearing thin. One question, and you've spent the last 10 minutes melting down instead of just answering it. Harry grabbed his jacket from the back of his chair. His hands were shaking. Whether from anger or adrenaline or embarrassment, it was hard to tell. Probably all three. You're going to regret this, Harry said, pointing at Sunny one more time. When this airs, people are going to see how you treated me. They're going to see your bias, your agenda. It's already airing, Whoopi interjected. This is live television, remember? Harry's face went pale. For a second, just a second, you could see the panic. The realization that everything he'd just said and done had been broadcast to millions of people in real time. No edits, no second takes, just raw, unfiltered chaos. But instead of apologizing, instead of trying to salvage the situation, Harry doubled down. Good, he said, his voice defiant. Let them see. Let them see how the media treats people. How they bait you and provoke you and then act innocent when you react. Nobody baited you, Sunny said, and she sounded tired now. Tired of the accusations. Tired of the dramatics. Just tired. I asked you a legitimate question and you chose to respond this way. That's on you, not on me, not on this show. On you. Harry opened his mouth to respond, but a producer appeared from off camera. A tall man in a headset who walked right up to Harry and spoke to him in a low voice. The microphones didn't pick up what he said, but the message was clear. It was time to go. Harry looked like he wanted to argue. You could see the wheels turning, the internal debate about whether to make an even bigger scene. But somewhere, some small voice of reason must have broken through, because he finally nodded. Fine, Harry said loudly, making sure everyone could hear. I'll leave, but this isn't over. Actually, it is, Sunny said simply. It's very much over. Harry walked toward the exit, his footsteps echoing in the silent studio. Every eye followed him. The cameras tracked his movement. This was the walk of shame, and everyone knew it. But he couldn't resist one last parting shot. At the edge of the stage, Harry turned back. You should be ashamed of yourself, he called out to Sunny. You really should. Sunny didn't even blink. She just looked at him with an expression that somehow managed to be both sympathetic and disappointed. I'm not the one who should be ashamed right now, she said quietly. And I think you know that. Harry's face flushed red again. He opened his mouth, closed it, opened it again, but no words came out. Because what could he say? He'd backed himself into a corner with his own behavior, and there was no way out that didn't involve admitting he was wrong. So instead, he turned on his heel and walked off the stage. The door closed behind him with a heavy thud that echoed through the studio. For a moment, nobody moved. Nobody spoke. The audience sat in stunned silence. The co-hosts looked at each other with wide eyes. Even the crew members stood frozen, unsure of what to do next. Finally, Whoopi cleared her throat. Well, she said, and you could hear the shakiness in her voice. That was something. Sunny sat back down in her chair. She smoothed her hair, straightened her notes, and when she looked up at the camera, her expression was composed, professional, like she hadn't just been verbally attacked on live television. We're going to take a quick break, Whoopi continued, still trying to process what had just happened. When we come back, we'll We'll figure out what we're doing next. The cameras cut away, but in the studio, the aftermath was just beginning. Producers rushed onto the set. The co-hosts huddled together, and Sunny sat quietly, processing everything that had just transpired. Joy reached over and squeezed Sunny's hand. "You okay?" she asked softly. Sunny nodded. "I'm fine. I just asked him a question." "You did nothing wrong," Sarah said firmly. "Nothing at all." "I know," Sunny replied, "but that doesn't make it feel any better. Because here's the thing about moments like this. Even when you're completely in the right, even when you've done everything by the book, it still doesn't feel good to be attacked. It still hurts to have someone try to diminish you and your work in front of millions of people. But Sunny is a professional. She's been doing this for years, and she knew that the best response wasn't to engage with the dramatics. It was to stay calm, stay factual, stay true to her principles. During the commercial break, the producers came over to check on her, to make sure she was okay, to ask if she wanted to address what had happened when they came back from break. Sunny thought about it for a moment. Then she shook her head. "Let's just move on," she said. "Let's do the rest of the show. Talk about the other topics. Don't give this more air than it deserves." And that's exactly what they did. When the cameras came back on, Whoopi briefly acknowledged that the interview had ended unexpectedly, thanked the audience for their patience, and then they moved on to the next segment. No lengthy explanations, no dwelling on the drama, just professionalism. But the damage was done, not to Sunny or to The View, but to Harry himself, because in those heated minutes, he'd revealed something that all his carefully managed interviews and PR campaigns had tried to hide. He'd revealed that beneath all the talk about mental health and compassion and understanding, there was still someone who believed their royal status put them above accountability. Someone who thought that asking them to explain themselves was an attack rather than journalism. Someone who would lash out when challenged instead of engaging in good faith. Sunny had asked one simple question, one fair, reasonable question about a very public contradiction in his behavior. And instead of answering it, instead of having a real conversation, Harry had chosen to make it personal, to attack Sunny's credibility, to question her professionalism, to try to make himself the victim. But the cameras don't lie. The live broadcast captured everything, and what it showed was someone who couldn't handle the most basic level of media scrutiny. Someone who demanded privacy while simultaneously selling their story. Someone who preached about kindness while being cruel to a woman who was just doing her job. The audience had watched it all unfold. They'd seen Sunny remain calm and professional while Harry spiraled. They'd seen her give him multiple chances to course correct. They'd seen her stand her ground without being aggressive or hostile. And they'd seen Harry reveal his true colors. The entitlement, the arrogance, the inability to accept criticism or even questioning. It was all there, broadcast live for the world to see. In the control room, the director was already pulling clips. Within minutes, the confrontation would be all over social media. By the end of the day, it would be the top trending topic worldwide. News outlets would analyze every word. Body language experts would break down every gesture. And Harry's reputation would take a hit that no amount of PR could fix. Because this wasn't a tabloid hit piece. This wasn't unnamed sources or doctored photos. This was him, his words, his actions, his choice to walk away rather than engage. Sunny, meanwhile, finished the show with grace. She laughed with her co-hosts. She discussed the other topics. She did her job exactly the way she always does, with intelligence, humor, and professionalism. When the cameras finally stopped rolling and the show ended, Sunny packed up her things, quietly. Her co-hosts gathered around, offering support and solidarity. "You handled that perfectly," Alyssa said. "Seriously, you were amazing." "I just stuck to the facts," Sunny replied. "That's all you can do." "He made a fool of himself," Joy added, "and everyone saw it." Sunny nodded, but there was no satisfaction in her expression, no sense of victory. Because this wasn't about winning or losing. This was about doing her job with integrity, and she had. The audience filed out of the studio, still buzzing with shock and excitement. Many of them pulled out their phones immediately, texting friends and family about what they'd just witnessed. Some recorded messages describing the scene. Others just sat in stunned silence, trying to process it all. For the crew, it was a day they'd never forget. In an industry where most interviews follow a predictable script, they just captured lightning in a bottle. A completely unplanned, unscripted moment of pure chaos. The executive producers watched the footage back, me already knowing this would define the show's legacy for years to come. Not because they'd planned some dramatic confrontation, but because they'd simply done what The View always does. Asked tough questions, and let the chips fall where they may. Sunny drove home that evening with her head held high. She'd been called names. She'd been disrespected. She'd been accused of bias and harassment and bullying. But she knew the truth. And more importantly, millions of viewers knew the truth too. She hadn't gone into that interview looking for a fight. She'd gone in looking for answers. Real answers to real questions that real people were asking. And when the subject of that interview couldn't or wouldn't provide those answers, when he instead chose to attack and demean, she'd held her ground. That's what good journalism looks like. Not softball questions and fawning praise. Not letting people use your platform to spread their message unchallenged. But real, substantive questioning that holds powerful people accountable. And if they can't handle that, if they crack under the pressure of one straightforward question, then maybe they're not as ready for public life as they claim to be. The next morning, Sunny woke up to a flood of support. Colleagues from across the industry reached out to praise her professionalism. Viewers sent messages thanking her for her integrity. Fellow journalists applauded her for not backing down. But there were also the critics, the people who accused her of being too harsh, too confrontational, too unwilling to let things go. These voices tried to paint her as the aggressor, tried to flip the narrative and make Harry the victim. But the video didn't lie. Anyone who watched the full exchange could see exactly what happened, could see who remained professional and who didn't, could see who asked reasonable questions and who responded with personal attacks. Sunny didn't respond to the critics. She didn't need to. Her actions spoke for themselves. She'd done her job. She'd done it well. And she'd done it with a level of grace under pressure that most people could only aspire to. The View continued on, as it always does. More shows, more interviews, more conversations about the issues that matter. But that day, that interview, that moment when Prince Harry walked off the set after his complete meltdown would be remembered as one of the most dramatic in the show's history. Not because of what Sunny did, but because of what Harry revealed about himself. That underneath all the carefully crafted image was someone who still believed they were above the rules, above questioning, above accountability. And Sunny Hostin, through nothing more than asking a simple question and refusing to be bullied, had exposed that truth for everyone to see.